Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you all here are with us tonight. Thank you for waiting. I was a little bit delayed in getting started. Thanks for waiting. I really appreciate it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notifications bell. We are going to have yet another one of our late night conversations. So let's go.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, 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 everybody. I am so glad that you are here tonight. Wow, we've already got a great super chat from Gala, who's been a long-time supporter of this channel. Thank you, Gala. It's very appreciated. We got Alex Rickel here, and he is making an audiobook of the Houthi book, and that is a great contribution. I wish you the best of speed and luck in your endeavors. We already have a great audiobook that Tyler made of Where is America Going? Marxism, MAGA, and the Coming Revolution. So now Alex is working on the audiobook of the Houthi book, and that is tremendous. We have a great community here. We really, really do. The community that the Center for Political Innovation has built. This is so much more than a YouTube channel. It's so much more than a YouTube channel. We have a real community of people that are dedicated to building a network of anti-imperialist activists here in America. And I deeply value all of you. And, you know, it's late, but I figured, hey, you know, I streamed earlier with Craig Pasta Jardula on his new YouTube channel, Pasta to Go. That was great. But, you know, I figured why not hop right back on here, even if it's late. You know, hey, I work from home. And so I no reason I can't just hop on here and do these streams as much as I possibly can, because you all are a great community. And I find it really, really rewarding to engage with all of you. It is really a great experience. So the way these live streams have been working is that what I do is I give my opening remarks, which is what I'm basically doing now. I tell you what's on my mind, what I'm thinking about, etc. Then from there, we do the roll call, where I call you all out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations. And we find out who is on the other side of the camera. That's always really exciting because it's a really diverse group of people. And then I answer your super chat and Rumble Rant questions for the rest of the night. So Gala will be the first one we address. You know, if there's Rumble Rants, we'll address those. And, you know, that's the way we do these things. You know, you all make this channel happen. So I'm really glad to be here with all of you tonight. And we're just going to keep talking about world events, keep talking about the news, etc. Couple announcements. First things first, we are having the CPI Educational Workshop in Vermont. That workshop is coming up. It is getting closer every day. It is not this coming weekend, but next weekend. It is April 26th through April 29th, and it's very close. So if you still want to come and sign up, we've had a number of people sign up. It looks like there's going to be a decent crew of folks coming. If you can join us, the registration information is in the description down below. I'm also dropping it in the chats, but please register so we know how many people to expect. Once you register, we'll give you a call and you know, get all the details and send you all the information. It's going to be a good educational weekend. It's, you know, retreats are not huge events, right? We're not expecting thousands of people, obviously, but it's about bonding a group of people together, people, you know, coming together who are serious and about bonding together our organization and teaching our anti-imperialist ideology and preparing for the coming months, because this summer is going to be very exciting We got the NATO summit coming up in Washington, D.C. We got the two conventions, the Democrat and Republican conventions. There is a need for anti-imperialists to be out among the population, spreading the word, spreading the message, doing outreach. There's a real need for us to do what we are set out to do. So we're going to have a weekend to get together, to get to know each other, and to, try to build and solidify our organization. So I hope you can join us. I hope you'll consider coming. It's going to be great. We've been having the planning meetings, and it's a good crew of people that are coming, but anybody else, get in while you can, right? Because it's getting closer. Not this coming weekend, but next weekend. It'll be in Vermont, a beautiful, kind of rural area, nice small town. We're going to have good food. We're figuring out the food. We just had a meeting last night to figure out the food and the music and the fun activities, the hiking and the class schedule, and so many great things are happening. So I hope that if you are a supporter of our community, you will figure out a way to come. Most people that are coming are flying to New York City because we have transportation from New York City, right? It's way cheaper to fly to New York than it is to fly to Burlington. Burlington, Vermont is obviously way closer, but it's much more expensive to fly to Burlington. So if you can come to New York City and get on the bus, we'd love to have you. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun, intimate 4-day educational workshop, getting to know people, teaching classes on our revolutionary ideology. Really hope that you will consider joining us. So there you go. That's the registration and invitation right there. So just wanted to mention that. Another couple things while we're at it. I was quoted in the Global Times. I don't know if you saw this, but if you get a chance, Global Times is a newspaper in China, and they did a feature piece about survivalism in the United States and people buying bunkers and hiding up in the mountains. Well, there you go. I got quoted in the Global Times. There you go. Go and check it out. I was an expert on American survivalism. They consulted my opinion. Not the first time I've been in Global Times. They did a feature piece on me in the Global Times last year after I confronted Tsai Ing-wen. They talked about my book, Where is America Going?, which is in the process. It's coming along. It's going to be published in Chinese very soon. That's very exciting. And there's an audiobook of it online from Tyler McConnell if you want to listen to it. So that's very exciting. I'm really happy that's going to be in Chinese, published very soon. And I was featured again in the Global Times. And then my analysis, I did an interview about Javier Malay and how he's just a fraud and how he's not, not an anti-imperialist, or he's not fighting the deep state. And I did that interview and I posted that earlier. That was with Sputnik News, Garland Nixon, Wilmer Leon, etc. So I did that. And Sputnik News made a press release about my interview and has been translated into a number of languages about how Javier Malay is not fighting the deep state. He's not fighting imperialism. He is just a Zionist, and he's engaging in neoliberalism. His ideology is the ideology of the globalists, the free market, open international system. And so Sputnik News circulated in so many different languages: German, Spanish, French, Italian, all different languages. My interview about Javier Malay that's on this channel also got circulated. Well, that's very exciting. I mean, and it shows that what we're doing here with Center for Political Innovation is very, very important. There's a reason that our organization, not just me, but also NOAA, we were both selected to ask questions to Russian President Vladimir Putin when we were in Russia, at the World Youth Festival. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that I was, invited to sit down with the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran. We are anti-imperialists. There are some people who complain about flags. Oh, American flags are racist or whatever. Yeah, okay, whatever. There's some people who rant and rave on the internet or whatever. We're actually doing anti-imperialism. The Center for Political Innovation is not a huge organization, but we're actually doing anti-imperialism. We are trying to mobilize the bulk of the American people, and bring forward an anti-imperialist message that could actually change the course of the history of this country. And that is really important to people around the world. And people in China, Global Times, they're looking for analysis. Who do they call? Me, right? The Sputnik News, they want analysis about Javier Malay. So I do a radio interview. Then they take that radio interview, they translate it into many different languages. They circulate it around the world, right? Russian President Vladimir Putin is having a bunch of international guests ask him questions. Who do they turn to? Me and Noah Shank. The two of us, we get to ask the Russian president questions. We got to lead the delegation to the World Youth Festival. The president of Iran is coming to the United Nations for the UN Assembly. He wants some reporters to interview him. Who does he call up? Me, Center for Political Innovation. I mean, I'm telling you, if you're with the Center for Political Innovation, you're doing real anti-imperialism, right? And people don't seem to understand that the point is to actually win, right? The point is to actually win. The point is not to make yourself feel good on the internet. The point is not to get your anger out, right? The point is to actually win. And because we have a perspective to actually win, we are respected internationally. People look at us and they see that we're serious. We're not fooling around on the internet. We're serious. That is something I would like you all to keep in mind. Maybe somebody else can do a better show than I can do. But nobody else is building a real organization. We're building a real organization that's aimed at winning over real Americans with a real anti-imperialist message. Alex, who just read the Houthi book, right? I mean, who didn't just read it, but he's making an audio book. He said, this is a book I could give to my family members. And that's why I wrote it that way, because I want to reach your family members. Right. And that there is a point in what we're doing. We're not just trying to be right. We're actually trying to win. And because we're trying to win, we're not going to win the woke contest on the internet. We're trying to actually reach the bulk of the American people. So I just want you to understand that, right? We are the anti-imperialists. I mean, we are it at this point. I mean, there are very few real anti-imperialists in America at this point, and we're it. We have good friends who do anti-imperialist work. The Party of Communists, they're good folks. We're friends with them. We have a close relationship. There are, folks that we work with around Korea solidarity. There are folks that we work with around different issues. We were part of the Rage Against the War Machine rally last year, but we're it. So, I would encourage you, if you like what I have to say on here, get involved. Join the Center for Political Innovation. Go to our website, cpiusa.org, and become a member. And start coming to our weekly Zoom calls and come to our meetups and conferences and events, because the point is to win. The point is to win. The object is to win. And that, people don't believe they can win. And that's why, the textbook that I've published, that we put together. I haven't done most of the work. In terms of the layout and the cover design, Marissa, Elizabeth, they've been doing amazing work. But we want people to understand they could actually win. They could actually win. Okay? We could see a new America with jobs, peace, democracy, and equality. We could see a new America that's not at war, and not at war with the rest of the world, but is actually, striving to have win-win cooperation and eliminate poverty. Everything we do is done with the intention that we will someday be running the government, and the policies that we dream up will someday be enacted. And that's why we're not screaming open borders now, because it's not a real policy. Every country in the world has borders. That's not why we're not, blocking traffic and trying to alienate the American people. We're trying to make a case that the American people, that they deserve to be the people that run the country, and not the big banks and Wall Street corporations. So, I would like to get that across to people, and that, mean, you have good days, you have bad days. Last night, I was a little bit pissed off. I was a little bit frustrated, and I channeled all of that into making a pretty good live stream. And that was great. Last night, I yelled for a good, what, 2.5 hours, and it was a great live stream. Okay, I'm back. It's not going to be like that every night. I try not to be just Mr. Rage-a-Hall, but, hey, I think last night's show went pretty well, and now I'm back, and now I'm doing tonight's show. So, and I'm going to do another show tomorrow night, and I'm going to do another show after that. I'm going to try to do this as much as I can. And that's one of the beauties of having this room I've got here. Look at this room. I've got this room, this whole room here, I've got this room. I don't know, I mean, I'm not going to show you every angle of it, but I got a whole room here that I can work with. And I can stream with, and I've got a background that I can use. And hey, I'm here and I'm doing stuff. So, hey, glad you all are here with me. So, this is pretty much my opening remarks already, but while we're making these open remarks, what is the topic of my opening remarks for tonight? Well, I don't know if you saw, but I guess this is our news hook. This is our item. Rivers are totally fascist, Tyler. But I'm joking, of course. But I don't know if you saw, but the U.S. Congress just passed a condemnation of the slogan "From the river to the sea," and they like. First of all, why is the U.S. Congress even talking about this? Ask yourself, why in the world is the U.S. Congress having votes about whether it's okay for people at protests to chant "From the river to the sea"? But they did, right? I mean, here's the New York Post. The U.S. House of Representatives passes resolution condemning "From the river to the sea" as anti-Semitic. Now, first of all, this is an absolutely colossal waste of time. This is an absolutely colossal waste of time. I mean, most members of Congress support Israel. Duh. We already know that. That's why they give Israel $18 million in our tax money every day. But it's not enough to support Israel. It's not enough to give Israel $18 million every day. It's not enough to give Israel a bunch of free weapons all the time. It's not enough that after Israel illegally attacked the consulate in Damascus and murdered 7 Iranians, including 2 generals of their military, that the United States then had airplanes flying over Jordan, shooting down Iranian drones trying to protect Israel. We spent basically $1 billion to try and protect Israel from Iran's response. But it's not enough that we do that. Now we have to have members of Congress vote. The House of Representatives voted on whether or not something that people chant at Palestine protests is anti-Semitic or not. And shocker, our Congress that is bought and paid for by the Israel lobby decided that it was anti-Semitic, and they passed an official resolution telling us that Congress does not approve of people chanting "From the river to the sea." Now, this is beyond stupid. I mean, the level of stupid here, I don't know. Now, what's interesting, there was one Republican, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who voted against it. I'm impressed with that guy. Who is Thomas Massie? That is, like, he's a Republican, and he votes not to condemn the slogan. That is awesome. He's a libertarian Republican. He's part of the Tea Party movement, and he voted no. I'm proud of that guy. 43 Democrats voted against it, including AOC and others. And what's weird is these Democrats tend to vote for Israel funding, but they weren't going to vote to condemn the slogan. Right? what they said about the slogan was that it seeks to deny Jewish people the right of self-determination. That's what they said about the slogan. Chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, they said, seeks to deny Jewish people the right of self-determination. Now, wrap your mind around that one. How was Israel created? Israel was created because the British Empire, the British imperialists decided with the Balfour Declaration to send a bunch of European Jews, to an Arab country to set up settlements. And after they were doing this for a while, then in 1948, the UN gave them the right to forcibly deport thousands of people in the Al-Nakba, and a state for one race, one ethnic group, one religion was created. A state that explicitly serves one religion, one race, one ethnic group was created, and the people who'd been living there already were crammed into the West Bank and into Gaza and not given citizenship in this state, and living under occupation ever since. Now, how is saying that might be wrong, denying self-determination to Jewish people? That is beyond me. Saying from the river to the sea means that territory from the river all the way over to the Mediterranean Sea should belong to all the people who live there, not one race, not one religion, not one ethnic group, but all the people who live there. From the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, meaning that all the people there should have basic human rights. It's not that problem. I mean, what is wrong with that? I don't understand how that denies the Jewish people their right of self-determination. Okay. This is beyond me. Okay. I mean, it's like, I guess they're arguing the Jews as an ethnic group must have a national territory. And if you oppose the creation of a Jewish national territory, they argue, even if that national territory is on someone else's land, even if there's people already living there who get driven out and live under occupation and are subjected to horrendous conditions, even if that national territory or national state that's artificially created engages in bombing and aggression all throughout the region, somehow that's all okay. I mean, and if you say from the river to the sea, which just means everyone living there should have equal rights. That's basically what that slogan means. Somehow that's anti-Semitism. And the U.S. Congress is so upset about the fact that people at Palestine rallies are chanting from the river to the sea that they took the time to have an official vote to put forward a resolution condemning people for saying this. Where is the priority of our politicians? In case you didn't notice, the roads in this country are falling apart. In case you didn't notice, our schools are shit. We have the lowest math scores. We have the lowest science scores. In case you didn't notice, we barely have any high-speed railway in this country. In case you didn't notice, we got all kinds of issues with opioids. We got all kinds of issues with prisons for profit, and we got some problems right now in America. It's not like things are just randy dandy over here. And of all the problems that our members of Congress decided to vote on, decided to spend their precious time as legislators discussing, they decided that people peaceably assembling to chant a slogan that is commonly used around the world by those who are critical of Israel and think that what Israel does and that Israel's existence as a Jewish ethno-state is wrong, to make clear that the U.S. government does not approve of these things. I'm just like, the fact that this is even happening, right? I mean, it's bad enough that so many members of Congress voted for it. I'm glad one Republican and 43 Democrats voted against it, thank God. But why is this even being discussed? Why? What in the world? What is accomplished here? Like, what are they trying to achieve? This is very, very, very dumb. It is dumb on the highest level. It is a waste of our time. It is a waste of our taxpayer money. I can guarantee you that nobody, well, maybe less than 1% of the population went to the voting booth and elected their member of House of Representatives. Oh boy, I want them to get in there and tell people what they should and should not chant at protests. Keep in mind, this isn't even a law. They're not outlawing chanting this because the U.S. Constitution allows freedom of speech. So they're not making it illegal to chant this. They've done that in Britain. They've done that in Germany and other countries. But in the United States, you can still chant this, right? Here in the United States, with the free speech thing, we're a little bit, we'll talk about free speech here in a minute, but they're not outlawing chanting this. They're just saying, we disagree. And it is an absolute waste of goddamn time and money. And we didn't elect the House of Representatives members to talk about this. It's a waste of time. It is a waste of money. And it is utterly stupid. And I can guarantee you that no one's going to stop chanting this. They're going to say, oh boy, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution saying we shouldn't say this. Oh boy, I better not say it now. They're going to say it. Like, this is dumb. It's dumb on many, many levels. But it's bootlicking. Okay? It is bootlicking. Because Israel gets so much special treatment in America. I don't get it, right? Because there is the pro-Israel people have this narrative in their minds that Israel is so oppressed, that everyone's so unfair to Israel. There are laws in a number of states that say if you want to be a teacher, a government employee, if you want to be employed by a state, you want to be employed by the state of Georgia, you want to be employed by the state of South Carolina or Virginia, you are required to sign a document that says you will never boycott Israel. There's no other country. If you want to be a teacher in Georgia, you better sign a document that says you will never not shop at Israeli companies, right? And how do you promise not to boycott something? Like, that's what I don't understand, right? They could make you promise to boycott something, right? They could make you promise you'll never buy something, but boycotting is not buying. So what does that mean, right? Like, if I promise not to boycott Israel, if there's an Israeli company and a non-Israeli company, I have to shop at the Israeli company because I signed something saying I would never boycott Israel. This is dumb. But apparently, to be a government employee in a number of states, you must sign something that you will never boycott Israel. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. But that's the law in a number of states. We have a law like that here in New York, right? Governor Andrew Cuomo, he said, the way it works is that if you boycott Israel, New York will boycott you. Well, why is that New York's business? Right? There's a lot of Arabs in New York. They want to boycott Israel, some of them. Right? There's a lot of Jews in New York who don't support Israel. So why does the state of New York have an opinion about what I do with my money? Right? If I want to eat at McDonald's, that I guess supposedly the Kroc family donate to the Jewish United Fund and support Israel, I do eat at McDonald's. I'm not boycotting McDonald's. That's my business. If I want to go to Burger King instead because I don't approve of Israel, that's my business. It's my money. And I don't understand why, if I want to be a teacher, or if I want to be a sanitation worker, or if I want to work at a New York National State Park, I have to sign something that says I'll always go to McDonald's. I'll never boycott Israel. This is dumb. This is utterly stupid. And it's bootlicking. Right? I mean, no other country, no one has to sign anything that they won't boycott China. No one has to sign anything that they won't boycott Vietnam. No one has to sign anything that they won't boycott Mozambique. And so how is Israel oppressed, right? If the government is going out of its way to require people just to maintain government jobs to sign something that says, I will never boycott this country. That's ridiculous. And now we just have the U.S. Congress going out of its way to, pass a resolution saying they don't approve of a slogan that people chant at rallies opposing Israel. This is dumb. This is stupid. And I've said that over and over, and I guess I'm beating a dead horse, so to speak, but it's like, if you can't see that there's a very, very unhealthy relationship between Washington and Tel Aviv, if you can't acknowledge that, you are willfully closing your eyes to reality. Something is not right. Something is deeply, deeply wrong when one country is given this level of special treatment. All right. Now, a number of countries in Europe have actually banned Palestine flags, banned chanting from the river to the sea. Our comrades in Britain, in the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist, were arrested for their pamphlet that they published called Zionism, which is a very good piece of writing. You can read the PDF of it online. They were arrested for distributing it. Now, they did drop the charges against them, thank goodness. But, this is insane. This is utter insanity. It's complete and utter insanity. And just saying that Israel is a tool of U.S. imperialism or a tool of Western imperialism it's not enough, right? Israel has its own network of supporters. Israel has its own alliances. And it's not just that, right? Yes, Israel was set up by the British Empire. Yes, American money and weapons keep Israel afloat. But Israel's not merely a puppet. It's not a helpless puppet of the imperialists, right? Zionism is a racist mass movement. It is a supremacist mass movement. And it has its own power. And we should not deny that. It exists. It exists, and it has its own center of gravity. And it's making America humiliate itself. The fact that our members of Congress passed this stupid resolution condemning something that people chant at rallies, reflecting the majority opinion in the world. The overwhelming majority of the world does not approve of what Israel is doing right now. You do realize that. You go to Africa, nobody likes Israel. Go to Asia, nobody likes Israel. You go to South America, nobody likes Israel. Like, the overwhelming majority of humanity is opposed to what Israel's doing. There's some people in India who like Israel, right? There's evangelical Christians in South America that are Pentecostal. They like Israel. That's about it, right? I think Azerbaijan, there's like some Muslims in Azerbaijan who like Israel. That's we're scraping the barrel here. The overwhelming majority of humanity is not offended by from the river to the sea, right? They're not offended by it in Indonesia. They're not offended by it in the Philippines. They're not offended by it in China. They're not offended by it on the overwhelming bulk of the African continent. They're not offended by it in the bulk of South America. Like, saying from the river to the sea is a pretty acceptable thing to do. There are evangelical Christians across the planet in Africa and South America who, yes, they support Israel. India, there's a lot of folks in India who really hate Muslims and really think Muslims are the main threat, and they support Israel. There are, that we're scraping the barrel here. You go outside of Western Europe and the European Union, you go outside of the United States and Canada and Australia, and the bulk of the world opposes Israel and is appalled by what Israel is doing. So, I mean, why in the world should Americans who oppose Israel not be able to say what the majority of the world thinks? I mean, this is just very basic stuff. And the fact that there's even discussion of this, the fact that the Congress had to pass this resolution, it's humiliating, right? This is we're kissing up, right? This is something you do to gain favor with your boss, with the person who's really in charge. And this is an example of Israel leading America around on a leash. Okay, this is Israel, cucking America. Okay, to use alt-right terminology. Right now, it doesn't mean that it's not one global system of imperialism. That doesn't mean that there aren't examples of Israel being forced to do things it doesn't necessarily want to do in order to serve U.S. imperialism. But right now, at this point, it's not simply a matter of Israel being a puppet of Western imperialism. Like, there's an example of Israel having its grip on American politics in a very inappropriate and unhealthy way. It is. I mean, I feel like anyone who's like an American patriot, anyone who's like a Trumper, who's like America first should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed that Israel, this foreign country, has so much power that it can force us to pass crazy laws, making it illegal to boycott them, that can force our Congress to pass resolutions condemning people who would dare protest against them. I mean, the fact that our politicians here in the United States are so desperate to make Israel happy, they should be desperate to make us happy, right? I mean, they should be desperate to make the American people happy, and we are not happy. And are there a lot of Americans who support Israel? Sure. But do you think they care if people are chanting from the river to the sea? Do you think that's like the top priority? What do you think should be done in the country? Well, I really think that the House of Representatives should pass a resolution telling people not to chant from the river to the sea because it's racist. I don't think that's what most Americans want their government to be concerned about, even if they do support Israel, right? I just don't think this is where the American people are at. But this is where our political system is at, because our leaders are not loyal to the American people. They are loyal to an international financial system, capitalism in its monopoly stage, imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Vladimir Lenin wrote about it. Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Capitalism in its monopolistic stage, the rule of the world by big banks and corporations, financiers who dominate the global economy, carving out spheres of influence, trusts, cartels, and syndicates that engage in territorial appropriation, acquisition with the export of capital, dominating global markets. That is what our leaders are loyal to. They are loyal to the imperialist system, and we, the American people, are being left behind. They're not loyal to us. They are loyal to this global financial system, this British Empire way of doing things. And our country began with a revolution against this kind of system. Right? The British didn't want America to be an industrialized country. They wanted America to be a trading hub. They wanted America to be a nice place they could dock their ships. They wanted America to be a place that, helped them link trade routes across the global oceans. They did not want the United States to have its own domestic economy. And that's what the Boston Tea Party was about, right? They were forcing the American colonists to buy their products from British corporations with a Stamp Act and such. And so what did we do? We Americans, we went and we took that tea and we dumped it right into the ocean. Boston Tea Party. And the American Revolution, yes, there were many people in it that wanted slavery. Yes, there were many people in it that wanted westward expansion to kill Native Americans. Right? It wasn't all good. But the burning question, the point of disagreement, if you read the Declaration of Independence, then if you read what the founding fathers had to say, from Thomas Jefferson to Alexander Hamilton to Patrick Henry, what they were saying is we must have a country. We want America to become more prosperous. That's why the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson wrote, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, meaning you have the right to try and make your life better, right? And that we as a people had the right to expand our population, expand our living standards. That was the question. The British said, no, you get to be a little part of our empire. You get to be a place we can dock our ships, etc. And we said, no, we want to have a country here. We want to industrialize. We want industry. We want development. We want trade. That was the question in the American Revolution. And we won that revolution. And then after the American Revolution, you'll notice there was a big rebellion of poor people because they weren't given what they'd been promised. A lot of poor people had been promised land. They didn't get it. You had Shays Whiskey Rebellion. You had uprisings taking place. The Constitution of the United States was written in response to the fact that there were uprisings of poor farmers all the time. And people were rising up and they needed to have a central government. And so they passed the Constitution. And then the American people wouldn't accept the Constitution without the Bill of Rights. And so the first 10 amendments were passed. And the first one is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or restricting free exercise thereof, or of freedom of speech, or of freedom of the press, or of the right of the people to assemble peaceably and petition their government. The First Amendment says you can have your own religion. It says there will never be a state religion in America. It says you can say what you want, you can publish what you want, and you can have protests as long as they're peaceful. You can peaceably assemble for demonstrations to petition the government. That's the First Amendment. We would not accept the Constitution unless it had that in it. And then there was the Second Amendment. And what was the Second Amendment? I want to read you the words of the Second Amendment. I don't have that one memorized, but we'll go over the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment: a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, what in the hell does that mean? Right? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, it was basically saying that in the parts of the country that were being settled, in order to have security, you needed to have some kind of armed force. And so, in the various regions, it was necessary to have some people that served as police. And a lot of these areas that were, new and, we're talking frontier era, right? And a lot of these frontier era kind of places, it was a volunteer force. So a well-regulated militia was formed. And, it was necessary to grant the states the right to not have make it federal police, but they had the right to form their own local police force, their own local armed force. And on top of that, you as a private citizen have the right to have a gun, right? To keep and bear arms. They will not take that away. So a state has the right to have its state police. It has the right to have a local sheriff. And, you have to have that. And it shouldn't be just the federal government imposing that. A well-regulated militia. And you as an individual, you have the right to a gun in your house. And why was this passed? Now, this is very interesting. I have been obsessed with the English Civil War. It's been like I've been really into Oliver Cromwell and the English Civil War for the past little bit. And I've been talking about it on these streams a lot because the English Civil War, America is a result of the English Civil War. And that I just keep coming back to that. This is Cromwell. They should call it Cromwellia, the United States of Cromwellia. Oliver Cromwell died, but his spirit goes marching on. America as a country, our culture, our identity as a people is very, very closely tied up with Oliver Cromwell. So what happened? In England, capitalism was emerging, feudalism was the dying system, and the king and the Church of England represented feudalism. And in the cities, you had a lot of urban capitalists and industrialists and factory owners. And, you had capitalists that were fighting against the king and his feudal order. And the parliament was dominated by the capitalists, and the feudal landowners, they were aligned with the king. And the Church of England is the state religion in Britain. And the Church of England was a lot like the Catholic Church. They just, they changed a few things. You can get divorced, priests can get married. It was King Henry VIII wanted to get divorced, so he started his own church, Church of England. The Church of England is very, very Roman Catholic, very, very rigid in its ceremonies. But there were many, many people who did not like the Church of England. They thought the Church of England was basically just Catholicism ripped off, and it was very rigid, and they felt spiritual, and they felt a connection with God, and they also felt that the Church of England defended a corrupt aristocracy that was anti-democratic and oppressed people. So all across the urban areas in London and in Birmingham and in, urban centers among the emerging capitalist class, you had a bunch of rabble-rousing preachers, a bunch of street preachers that emerged. And those street preachers, those rabble-rousers, they were called Puritans because they wanted to purify the Church of England. And then you had some of them that were called separatists. They wanted to break away from the Church of England. And you had many different sects among them. And they had, different religious groups. You had the Quakers that followed George Fox, believed you had the light within. You had the Ranters that were a group that believed in sexual freedom. You had the Muggletonians. It sounds like a wild name, the Muggletonians. But there were many, many different groups. And this whole group of people, this big glop of people who did not like the Church of England and did not like the king, they were called religious dissenters. And the capitalists funded them because the Church of England backed up the king. The king was technically the head of the Church of England. And these people were against the king, and they were rabble-rousers, and they were rallying the people for democracy, for the right to vote, etc. And got to the point that the king and the parliament went to war with each other. And the official army of Britain had people from the countryside, were drafted, peasants were drafted to go fight for the king. But in the cities, the urban capitalists needed to raise a new army to defeat the landowners, to defeat the aristocracy, to defeat the king. And so they formed what was called the New Model Army. The New Model Army. And the New Model Army was an army of religious fanatics. All the different religious fanatical groups formed their own division of the New Model Army. And, there was a Quaker division. I think there wasn't a Quaker division because they were pacifists, but there were Puritan divisions. There was a group called the Levelers. There were various religious groups. They all had their own division of the army. And it was a very, very passionate army, right? They were very dedicated to what they believed in. One section of the army were called the Levelers, and they had a manifesto about the right to vote, and they wore it in their hats. They wore hats as they marched into battle, and they had their manifesto in their hat. And the leader of the New Model Army was this guy named Oliver Cromwell. And Oliver Cromwell was a guy who had been super depressed and suicidal. And then he had a religious awakening and decided to become a Puritan. And he was a Puritan fanatic. And his name was Oliver Cromwell. And he was a very, very, very serious person. He was not a joker, not a funny man. He was very, very, very serious. There's a number of paintings of him out there. And Oliver Cromwell was not a comedian, not a silly guy. He was very, very, very serious. He is not smiling in any of these pictures. I mean, of course, you didn't smile back then, but he was a quite serious guy. Let me just put it that way. He didn't joke around much. And I'll put on the picture. This guy, Oliver Cromwell, and he led the New Model Army. And they won the war. They won. And in 1649, they overthrew the king. And they arrested the king for heresy, for preaching that he had divine right, for preaching that he had the right to be king, that he was appointed by God to be king. And they cut his head off. They executed the King of England. King Charles I got the death penalty. And Oliver Cromwell became the Lord and Protector of Britain. And he was like the military leader. And the Parliament, he was disappointed in the Parliament, so he dissolved the Parliament. And he was the Lord and Protector. He was like the military dictator of England for a bit. And then he died. And after he died, there had been all this unrest and chaos. And Oliver Cromwell, he was very, very opposed to Catholicism. So he had gone to war against Ireland and fought the Irish people and committed horrendous crimes against the Irish people because they were Catholic. And he'd been at war with the Scots, because they were Jacobites and a lot of them were Catholic. And he was very, very committed to fighting against Catholics. So after he died, the ruling class, the capitalists who brought him to power and had funded all these rabble-rousing religious fanatics, they wanted things to calm down. They wanted to get along with the Catholics again. So they went and found the son of the king who got his head cut off, Charles II. He was the son of Charles I. And they brought him back. And they put Charles II on the throne. They had a king again. And they started telling all these religious fanatics and rabble-rousers to calm the fuck down, right? Okay, we used you to overthrow feudalism. Feudalism is now overthrown, but now we would like to stabilize society. We don't want the working class rebelling. There was a socialist uprising in 1649 at the same time that they killed the King of England. They also, at the same time, they had, the diggers, right? St. George's Hill became a socialistic commune, and they had a socialist uprising among the peasants. And that a lot of these rabble-rousing, Christian fanatics were also, they were at the same time advocating some kind of heaven on earth, some kind of socialistic utopia. So the ruling class of England, the capitalist class that had mobilized the religious fanaticism in order to overthrow feudalism, it decided, okay, that's enough. They brought back King Charles II, and King Charles II became the new king. They said, we got a king now, so everyone can calm down. But a lot of these fanatics wouldn't calm down, and they kept preaching, and they kept rallying the people. And they all had guns, muskets, because they'd fought a war, right? They all had their own division of the New Model Army. So a lot of them had kept their guns and gun ownership, and it was having a gun was part of their religious practice, right? And that they were very proud that they had fought a revolution to overthrow the king, etc. So King Charles II was the king, and he started outlawing any religious dissenter owning a gun. He said, if you're not in the Church of England, you can't have a gun. And he started going to the homes of religious dissenters and taking their guns away. And at that point, many of them were like, okay, this is very bad. And so they started coming to the United States. And that's why freedom of religion is in the First Amendment, because there's a feeling that we should never have a state church, right? That people should be able to practice their religious beliefs. And this country was established by religious dissenters, people who did not agree with the Church of England and wanted to have their own relationship with God, wanted to have their own spirituality. And on top of that, there was the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, because many of them had come here because the Church of England had been imposed on their country. And on top of that, because they had been taking their guns away. And so that's why we have the First and Second Amendments. It's all tied up with Oliver Cromwell. When the British ruling class that had created Cromwellism and radical Puritan religious dissenters, when they decided to try to put the genie back in the bottle, to roll back the wheels of history, tell people to stop with the radicalism, stop with the spirituality. When that happened, they packed up and they came here. And the United States was very much established by people who believe that they can have their own spirituality, their own relationship with God, that no one has the right to tell them what their religion should be, that they have the right to engage in what they call freedom of conscience, right? The right to pursue spirituality in their own way. And also they have the right to own a firearm. And that if at any point they start trying to take your gun away, the next thing that comes is they're going to try to impose their religion onto you, and that must be opposed at all costs. This is part of our identity as Americans, the right to bear arms and the right to freedom of religion and freedom of conscience, as well as the right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press, to say what we think, to publish and circulate our views. And this is all very much part of the American identity. And a lot of people have come here over the years, right? Very few of us are descended from these folks who settled the country in the 1700s. But all the people who came here, generally, they came here because they were attracted to these ideas and because they believed they could become wealthier, right? America was associated with hard work and innovation and working hard, creativity. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, go out and achieve something, right? Motor mindedness. That's what America is known for, right? It's not a country where people just kind of go, okay, this is what I've got, I accept it. No, we've always been a country where people want to go work hard and achieve their dreams. And people want to have their own spirituality. They want to have their own religious connection, right? They feel something connected. They're connected to a higher power, and that motivates them to engage in action. And they want to have their own protection. They don't want to depend on the government to defend their home. They want to have their musket or their rifle or their shotgun right in their house to protect themselves. This is who we are as a people. And there's many different versions of this. I mean, you have the slaves who were brought into this country from Africa, right? They were brought here in chains, and slavery was genocidal. I think a lot of people don't realize how genocidal slavery was. People think that slavery was bad. They didn't have their freedom. No, slavery was genocidal. There were places like Angola, Louisiana, that were death camps. Angola, Louisiana was Auschwitz. Right. And it was basically if a slave was rebellious or whatever, they sent them to this place, and they lived about 2 years max. They would just work them to death. And slavery, the millions of Africans who died being transported to the United States, the millions who were worked to death in places like Angola. I mean, slavery was genocidal in how it was practiced. Absolutely genocidal. It was a murderous system. However, what's amazing is that despite the fact that, the language of the African people was removed from them, and they were separated from their religion and their language, etc., certain practices remained. And a lot of American spiritual practices, when you talk about Pentecostalism, right? When you talk about a lot of the things that have become part of the general American Christian evangelical tradition actually started with Black Americans, and they were African spiritual practices that, even though the slaves were forced to convert to Christianity, even though the slaves were forced to stop speaking their African languages, they still held on to certain religious practices. And a lot of the stuff that we associate with with, like tent revival preaching, the kind of music that they play, praise music, etc. A lot of this stuff is African in origin. These are African religious practices and ceremonies, which I think is very fascinating. Right? America is a very, very unique place. This is not a nation. We are not a nation, right? A nation is a country with a common language, a common culture. We're not that. America is very much a synthetically created civilization state, right? Russia and China are not nation states. They are civilization states. They contain many different nationalities, but they represent a civilization, an idea. America is also a civilization state, and it is a civilization synthetically created by capitalism. That as capitalism was emerging, as feudalism was being defeated, as the capitalist class was rising, you had the creation of, at that point, a civilization state. And the United States is a mishmash of different concepts and different practices and different beliefs, but there's certain things that flow through it. Americans are a very spiritual people. Americans are very much a hardworking people and an optimistic people. We believe that tomorrow will be better than today. We also are very much a people that emphasize self-reliance, right? We very much believe that your home is, they say, a man's house is his castle. We don't trust authority. We don't trust the government. We want the world to be better. We want to feel connected to something more than just the material world. We have a spirituality about us, and we have a drive to go and build and construct. America is very, very beautiful. And I'm telling you this as somebody who's spent a lot of my political life very anti-American, right? A lot of my political life was, saying I don't like America. I'm not an American. America is an evil culture, and all. I've come a long way. Right? Because at the end of the day, if we are going to build an anti-imperialist movement in America, we have got to learn to love America. I mean, we should love America more than conservatives do. We should love America more than Republicans do. We should love America more than anybody else. And we should know America more than anybody else. We should know America like the back of our hand. We should know the history of this country, the culture of this country. We should know what it's like to live in Louisiana. We should know what it's like to live in Utah. We should know what it's like to live in Arizona. We should know what it's like to live in New Hampshire and Vermont and Connecticut. We should know this country intimately. All right? This country should be something we know very, very, very well. I don't know if you know this, but Mao Zedong, the founder of the Chinese Revolution, I've got a biography of him, The Morning Deluge. Let me pull it up. Sorry. This is how these things work when you're up against your bookshelf. Hold on. So there's a biography of Mao Zedong. The Morning Deluge. This is a biography, one of the best biographies I've ever found of the leader of the Chinese Revolution, Mao. It's written by Han Suyin. It was an American novelist who became a communist. She wrote Love is a Many Splendored Thing. It was a romance novel. It was made into a movie. And then as the Chinese Cultural Revolution got going, she really loved Mao. So Han Suyin, right? She writes this biography of Mao. Right, and it's two parts. Morning Deluge is about Mao before the revolution, and The Wind in the Tower is the biography of Mao after the revolution. It's two parts. If you read part one, The Morning Deluge, you will learn about a man who loved his country. Before Mao even started revolutionary organizing, he went on a walk. He walked hundreds of miles. That was like one of the most important things Mao did. He was a young man from a very wealthy background. He'd studied, not a very wealthy background, but, his parents they owned land. They were kind of wealthy peasants, wealthy country people. And he studied at a university. He got money from his family and he studied at a university, became a university librarian, and he decided that he wanted to be a revolutionary. He wanted to save his country. He was motivated by patriotism. You read this book, Mao was motivated by love of country. Mao was a patriot. And he wanted things to get better in China. He didn't like how Japan was oppressing China and degrading China. He didn't like how China was divided and it was a poor country. So what did Mao do? He decided he wanted to be a revolutionary. So he just went on a trip. He walked hundreds of miles. And he just walked through the rural areas of China, talking to people for like a year. You can't make this up. He just walked for like hundreds of miles. He spent a year just walking through the countryside, talking to people, going to villages, going to little towns, and just talking to people about their lives. It was great. It was a great thing that Mao did, but that was because his whole motivation was about how do I make the country better? And so in order to do that, he had to get to know his people. And so he walked. He just went for a great walk. He just walked through the country to meet the people. And it was after he did this walk that he then launched his New People's Study Group. Well, that is what a serious revolutionary would do, right? You got to know the people. If you're going to organize the people of China to build a new China to fight against imperialism, you got to know the people of China, right? And Stalin was the same way. Stalin was from Georgia, from a rural village. He had a deep connection with the peoples of what became the Soviet Union. And he knew different nationalities. He'd grown up in seminary school, so he knew all about the Russian Orthodox Church, but he knew Muslims very, very well. And he studied Islam, right? He organized Muslims. He was in, the southern USSR. He knew Muslims very, very well. He engaged with Muslims. He was in Azerbaijan and Baku and different places. He knew Muslims very, very well. And he knew the people in the urban centers, the factory workers, and he knew the peasantry. And Stalin knew his people. And it was because he knew his people that he was one of their most effective organizers that he ultimately became the leader of the Soviet Union, because, a lot of the Bolsheviks did not know their people. A lot of the Bolsheviks had lived in the countryside, or had lived not in the countryside, but in exile. They'd lived in Europe, right? And they were, enamored with Western leftist liberal ideology, but Stalin knew the people. I often talk about Country Joe and the Fish. Well, there's a band that played at Woodstock, but they were called that because their parents were members of the Communist Party. Mao was the fish, because one of his most common sayings was the masses are the water and the revolutionaries are the fish. But Stalin was Country Joe. He was Country Joe because he knew the people. He was from the countryside, from the town of Gori, a little town in Georgia called Gori. And this isn't libidinal, right? People become revolutionaries because they want to get their anger out. People become revolutionaries because they want the world to know how angry they are. And maybe it's not as sexy to talk the way I'm talking right now. Maybe it's not, right? Maybe this isn't what you all want to hear, but I'm telling you that if you are a serious revolutionary, you need to know your own people like the back of your hand. You need to walk through the countryside and talk to people. You need to become familiar with your country and your people, and you need to figure out how you can give expression to feelings that are already widespread among your people. And that's not, again, that doesn't fulfill the fantasy a lot of people have, and that doesn't get their anger out. But ultimately, the only way we will ever have socialism and anti-imperialism in America, the only way things will get better in America, is if those of us who understand the economic roots of the problem, who understand the problem is capitalism and imperialism, who understand that we could have a centrally planned economy, right? we have to, as a people, figure out how we can tap into the sentiments that already exist among our people and empower those sentiments, give voice to them, give them expression through what we want to achieve. The American people have to achieve their dreams through us. We can't tell them what their dreams should be. We have to show them that our solution of getting rid of imperialism and getting rid of capitalism, creating a society where the banks, factories, and industries are organized to serve public good, we have to show them that the dreams and hopes and aspirations that they already have will be achieved through what we have to offer. That's what we have to do. And that's not an easy task. It is not easy. It is really, really not easy. But it's what a serious revolutionary organizer strives to do. And that's what we will have to do. And that's not, and that there's a lot of people that want to, they want to find a way that they can feel like they're accomplishing something by not doing this, right? They want to, I've been criticizing the Palestine protesters blocking traffic. Why are they doing that? Why are these Palestine protesters going out and blocking the Golden Gate Bridge and blocking the Holland Tunnel in New York City? Why are they doing that? Because they feel like they're doing something. And it gives them the feeling that they are standing up for Palestine because they get arrested for doing it, because people yell at them and honk their horns at them, and they're confronting people. There's a confrontation, so their desire to go out and fight because they're angry about what the Palestinians are being subjected to, they get to fight. They get to fight. They get to be arrested and face some persecution, some repression. They get to express their rage. They get to disrupt normal proceedings of everyday life. And all of that creates the illusion that somehow they are helping the Palestinians. But they're not. Because the people that they are confronting are not the people that are responsible for the policy. They're people that are victims of the policy. The American people that are struggling to get to work are living in a society where they don't have free health care. You know who does have free health care? Israel. Yeah, we give them $18 million a day, and their people get free health care, and we just can't afford it for our own people. Right? And, the people in American society who are struggling to get to work every day, they are living in a society where the roads are falling apart, where there's opioids in their neighborhoods, where their rights are being taken away. They're living in a society that is crumbling all around them. They're the victims of imperialism. They're not suffering anywhere near as much as the Palestinians are, or people in Africa might be, but they're still victims of imperialism. And if we, as the anti-imperialists, go out and fight them, we are putting into the minds of those people that somehow the imperialists and them are the same. Because, look, just like Israel's fighting people with Palestinian flags, they have to fight people with Palestinian flags in order to get to work. Right? And we're creating a bond between the American people and their oppressors, the imperialists and the Zionists. How does that help? But it makes you think you're doing something. Because, look, I'm angry about the Palestinians. And so I got to go someplace and yell at somebody and create a confrontation with somebody. I got arrested. I got shoved off the street by a police officer. I disrupted proceedings. So I feel that I am accomplishing something, but you're really not helping. Meanwhile, people look at what I do. and what the Center for Political Innovation does. People look at what we do and they say, oh my God, you've got American flags. Yeah, we do. Because that's the flag of this country. That's the flag the overwhelming majority of people in this country identify with. Martin Luther King Jr. marched with an American flag. Bernie Sanders has an American flag. I mean, if you're not already some kind of angry leftist, you have an American flag. Hell, that is the flag of the country. Caleb, you're always talking about patriotism. You fit socialism with God and the Bible and the flag. Yeah, because that's what the American people believe in. Right? And then people say, well, Caleb, you're trying to water it down. I'm not trying to water it down. Sorry, go watch some of my speeches. I am not watering it down. Right? I make a lot of people mad. I yell. I get fired up. I use 4-letter words. I'm not watering it down. I am pro-Putin. I am pro-Xi. I am pro-Kim. I am pro-Maduro. I am pro-Iran. I'm an anti-imperialist, and I have got the battle scars to prove it. I just got news today. I might be subject to some new persecution. I'm not going to say what it is, but you'll know. It looks like it's stupid. It's not going to really affect my life that much, but yeah, I mean, it's just like they just don't like people who do what I do. But I'm a reporter for RT. I risked my life on a ship trying to go to Yemen. I've had the FBI knock on my door. I'm a real anti-imperialist, right? I am very radical. If you think I'm watering it down, right? No, the people watering it down are the people that say vote for Biden. They're the ones watering it down. People saying watering it down are the people that trade in real anti-imperialism and real class struggle economics for woke shit. They're the people watering it down. I'm not watering it down. But I'm not sticking to the alienation. Right? And that's the thing. I don't view this as an expression of my alienation. I don't view this as a way that I can be different than American society. Right? And that is largely what a lot of people that are left is. It is their way to be different. It is their way to say, I am different than everyone else. And that is a recipe for disaster. It's because we live in a society where we're constantly trying to reinforce the differences between people. Right? Identity politics is all about trying to make people different from each other, give you a unique identity. How many letters have they put at the end of LGBT? It's LGBTQIAXYZ HHMSW. You know what I'm saying? They want everyone to express their individualism. That's what all these social media apps and all of that's about. So if communist politics for you is just a way to express your individualism, at the end of the day, it's not going to accomplish much. I mean, we want people to express their collectivism, to see what they have in common, to see how we're all being oppressed by a system that puts money over people and enables the very rich to rule over the rest of us. We're not talking about the rich versus the poor. We're talking about the very rich versus everyone else. And that everyone else includes the entire planet, not just the people of this country. Imperialism, capitalism in its monopolistic stage, is leading humanity off a cliff. The only way they can save their system is with forcible degrowth, austerity, grinding people into poverty, reducing the population. I don't know if you saw this, right? They're about to have a crisis of malnutrition in West Africa. Nigeria, a number of West African countries are going to have food shortages. At the same time, we have Joe Biden and the World Economic Forum and BlackRock doing their best to try and reduce the amount of food that's produced in the world. And these European farmers are rebelling because they want to produce more food. And Joe Biden and BlackRock and Kamala Harris and the World Economic Forum are saying, no, there's too much. In the name of protecting the environment, we got to reduce the amount of food in the world. People are starving. And they're trying to make less food. Why? What sense does that make? Well, that's the system. That's capitalism, right? People are hungry because there is too much food. People are homeless because there are too many houses. And they're trying to save their system from a crisis of overproduction by forcibly destroying the means of subsistence, the means of life, right? This is in the Communist Manifesto. He talks about this, right? A crisis that would have, in all other epochs, been an absurdity. The crisis of overproduction, right? Where wealth, greater wealth in society results in greater poverty. That doesn't make sense. But that's their system. And their system cannot handle the great technological innovations of the computer revolution. And so really the only rational way forward is for the banks and the factories and the industries and the centers of economic power to be organized to serve public good and not the profits of a wealthy few. We need a centrally planned economy. And that is going to have to be a collective thing. We're going to have to give expression to the collective need of the overwhelming majority of humanity to keep growing, to keep expanding. That's what we ultimately need to do. So, I mean, those are my thoughts tonight. Started out talking about Congress and the what do you call it? What is it? You know what I'm talking about. I started talking about that, the resolution to condemn from the river to the sea. And this is what comes to my mind, right? It's after midnight here and I'm talking, but that's what I wanted to say for tonight. A little bit of a different tone than last night, but hey, what the heck? But anyway, since I'm talking about what CPI does, I have this very short clip of what we do. And then after that, we'll do the roll call. So here we go. All right. So I'm glad you all are with us here tonight. So why don't we do the roll call? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Who's with us tonight? Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Mark Jones in Utica, New York. Rice from Adelaide, Australia is with us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Who else? Nate in Chicago. Zach Bunch in Richmond, Virginia. Patch in Arizona. Sydney, George Muniz. Alex Rickle in Oregon is with us. Toppage in LA. Steve in Boston. Chicken Pot Pie in New Jersey. Auckland, New Zealand. James in sunny Bangkok. Peter Zotti, LOL. Chris and April in Salt Lake City. Alex from Brazil. Oakland, California. Shannon, I'm a guy, not a chick. All right. There must be Irish. I think it's an Irish name. Shannon for a man, right? Patrick in Maine. Cleveland, Pirate Alex. The Seasoned Noob from China. Alex from Brazil. Waterloo, Iowa. Alexander Andresen. Welcome. Denver, Colorado, Mosen. Jenny Lynn from Cincinnati. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bob in Troy, New York. Richard in Moab, Utah. Denver, Colorado. Chow Chow Kathy. It's late. Still doing questions tonight? Yes, I am. Please send super chats. Get me talking. Jamie in Boise, Idaho. Jacob in Wisconsin. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Hempcar has sent a super chat. You know, there we go. Names and locations. Who is with us? Barry in Utah. All right. So, folks, I'm going to start answering people's super chat questions. I see, we have the super chat from Gala. We've also got a Rumble rant from Hempcar, and I can answer that. Oh, Colin in Greensboro. But I do want to remind you, folks, that I live in New York City, and my rent is way too damn high. It is way too expensive to live in New York City. And so I need you all to send super chats. The super chats that you all send, they help pay my rent. They help me get through life. They make it so I can have this extra room and have this 2-bedroom apartment with this extra room in it, where I can do these live streams. So if you can send super chats and give me something to talk about in the second half of the show, that's great. It also helps me pay my bills, and it supports the channel. It gives me something to talk about. And if you're concerned, I do not have access to CPI funds. CPI funds are handled by other people in the organization. So if you donate, if you send a super chat, donate to this channel, that goes to me. That helps me maintain my work. If you donate to CPI, if you're donating to go to the retreat, or you give membership dues, that doesn't affect me. I have no access to those funds. I don't get paid by CPI. CPI is a nonprofit in the state of Oregon, and it doesn't have any employees at this time. Those funds are used simply to carry out CPI activities. So we do appreciate super chats. They get me talking. They get this show doing good stuff. So if you're able to send me a question to get me talking in the second half of our show here, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So, we've got 2 super chats that have already come in. And I think one of them I might give an answer to. I might show a video. I might show a video that's kind of relevant, to what we're talking about here. Hempcar asked me about why the FBI came to my house. They came to my house because of the fact that I went to Iran and I spoke at the New Horizon Conference. The Islamic Republic of Iran in 2014 and 2015, and there was one before that. I went to the second and third New Horizon conferences, I think. I went to 2 of them, but they had different ones. But the FBI, Donald Trump declared, the U.S. Congress outlawed the New Horizon Conference. They declared that the New Horizon Conference, which was an anti-Israel conference of independent thinkers and filmmakers, was illegal. And I was not involved with it because I started working for RT, and I couldn't be flying to Iran for a month, if I'm, working for RT. So I was not involved with it anymore. But they knocked on my door. And they basically, after they outlawed the New Horizon Conference, they wanted to basically intimidate me and make sure I didn't go. And I said, well, I'm not involved in that anymore. And they said, do you want to talk about it? And I said, maybe with an attorney present. And they didn't. That was the end of that. But the FBI went around and talked to every American who had been at the New Horizon Conference. The New Horizon Conference was awesome. I got to say that. It was a lot of amazing anti-imperialist thinkers and such. And so I gave a very brief speech at one of the New Horizon conferences. And so I'm just going to show the speech that I gave at the New Horizon Conference, right? This is the FBI. You're asking me, Hempcar, why they came to my door. They came to my door because in 2015, 2015, I went to Iran and gave this speech.
It's really a privilege to be here at this very important conference, and I thank you for giving me a few minutes to just make some brief remarks. It's not enough to simply be against racism or to say that you are against racism. Token anti-racist statements in the modern United States are everywhere. Though Martin Luther King Jr. was shot down and killed for his brave, dedicated work, after his death, he has been reduced to a harmless, patriotic icon. Even though the FBI tried to destroy him, school children throughout the United States are now taught that MLK is proof that the United States is, quote, the greatest nation in the world. Well, the truth is, as most people here are aware, the United States is not a nation. The U.S. is a country, and within its borders are oppressed and oppressor nations. African Americans brought to this country in chains constitute an oppressed nation within U.S. borders. A lot of people in the U.S. like to say they are revolutionaries these days, Bernie Sanders and others. I say you're not a revolutionary unless you recognize that black people constitute a nation, and that as a nation they have the right to self-determination, to choose separation or integration for themselves. Every time I come to this part of the world, I meet so many young people who have a completely delusional portrait of the United States. What young Iranians see on satellite television, this image of the United States as a kind of rich paradise, this image of the United States is completely false. If you watch U.S. media, 90% of the time you're only seeing Southern California or New York City. But the United States is far bigger than that. In the heartland of the United States, what Sarah Palin demagogically called the real America, there are millions of young people who are very unhappy. The U.S. economy has been wrecked by deindustrialization. The steel mills, auto plants, and other good-paying industrial jobs have been eliminated. The public sector in teaching, libraries, post offices, and such has also been gradually eliminated. Young Americans in service sector jobs are stuck in a low-wage economy, making a mere fraction of what their parents made in the much-heralded American middle class that once existed. Young Americans watch the same garbage propaganda that is as what is broadcast into Iran, and they see how Kim Kardashian, the Real Housewives of New Jersey, and other wealthy people on American television live, and they then contrast it with their own lives. The rates of suicide, mental illness, and drug addiction among young Americans are rising. Young people in the United States are told that unless they are rich, they are worthless. And then they look into the future and see that they're going to spend their lives with a much lower income level than their parents and possibly spending it poorer than they expected. U.S. society, born in racism, slavery, and the slaughter of the indigenous people, is now entering a deep political and economic crisis. Now, what's true is not always obvious, but in some instances it is. And this is very obvious. The United States, in which there seems to be another mass shooting every time you turn around, is not a healthy, moral society. It's not a model or an ideal that any country should aspire to become. The most hopeful period in the history of the United States was the direct aftermath of the Civil War. The Civil War was really the Second American Revolution. Abraham Lincoln led a beautiful coalition. It included Christian abolitionists, labor unionists, industrial capitalists, and most importantly, the enslaved African people themselves. When the war broke out, enslaved African people stopped working in a general strike all throughout the South. Harriet Tubman became the first woman to lead U.S. soldiers into battle as she organized guerrilla bands freeing slaves along the Combahee River in South Carolina. The slaveocracy, aligned with the British Empire, was also supported by the Wall Street financial elite. They saw cotton exports from slave plantations as a way to make profits. But Wall Street, the British Empire, and the slave-owning aristocracy was defeated, and they were defeated by an amazing alliance. The Republican Party during the 1860s, far different than what it is today, was a revolutionary party. It took its name from the French Revolution. It represented the small farmers, the African Americans, and the labor unions. After defeating the slave owners, they continued to move ahead as a coalition. And for a brief period in the South, there was even land redistribution, where the land of the slave owners was being redistributed. Calling themselves the populists, the small farmers and free blacks called for public control of railroads, guaranteed education for all, and the overthrow of the monopolists, the wealthy bankers that have so much power. The progressive coalition that came out of the Civil War was broken apart by Wall Street. What did they use to destroy the progressive anti-capitalist mass movement that emerged in the aftermath of the Civil War? They used racism. The Ku Klux Klan used terrorist tactics very similar to what the Israelis are doing, very public, violent acts of terror with brutal violence, forcing the formerly enslaved persons out of political process. U.S. troops were pulled out of the South, and it was handed over to the racists. Since that time, the white people of the United States made a deal with Satan. As the big bankers have plundered the world, using bombs, sanctions, and cruise missiles to beat down those who assert their independence, we went along with it. We waved flags, we were loyal and obedient, and in exchange, we got houses, cars, and TVs. We were taught to identify with Wall Street and to look at the people of the world, as well as the black and brown people within the United States, as our enemies. But the devil does not keep his promises. The middle class, the bribe given to white Americans to buy their obedience and loyalty to empire, is gradually being eliminated. The standard of living in the United States is rapidly dropping. The civil liberties often bragged about by U.S. leaders are being stripped away as the U.S. is gradually transitioning to becoming a low-wage police state. The U.S. economy has become centered on destruction. Prisons for profit, police on every corner, empty foreclosed homes, rampant aggression, and war around the world. As we face the ruins of U.S. society, now it is time for white people to change how they see themselves. We need to understand that the satanic cabal of bankers that has committed so many crimes around the world is also our enemy. The people of Iran, Venezuela, Russia, China, Palestine, Yemen, and anywhere else who are standing up and trying to break free from their system of global usury are our friends. A new revolutionary coalition must be forged, an alliance of those within U.S. borders who reject the rule of the globalist bankers and can function almost as a U.S. division of the global, gradually emerging axis of resistance. Every day, the U.S. government provides $18 million to the Israelis as they escalate their genocidal crimes and provocations. A mass people's movement could demand that the money instead be spent on providing health care, education, and jobs for the next generation of youth within the United States. The U.S. currently has thousands of troops stationed in military bases throughout this region. A mass people's movement could demand that instead these soldiers be brought home and put to work rebuilding the crumbling bridges and roads throughout the United States. The United States is currently facing very hard times. However, as has often been said in the past, hard times are fighting times. The moment is approaching when a real people's movement against the racist Wall Street financial elite, their wars, their racism, their police state, and their global system of usury and poverty can broadly expand within U.S. society. Such a people's movement will require unity of political forces, concrete political demands, and a clear vision of an entirely new society on the continent of North America. And as I end, I just wanted to touch on, we're constantly told in the U.S. to think of people who are fighting for their independence around the world as terrorists. But there's a real difference between a revolutionary and a terrorist. If you want to know what a terrorist is, go see the next Hollywood superhero movie. Right? What is the most American movie genres? These ideas of superheroes. What is it? It's a white man usually who thinks the police aren't doing enough. So what does he do? He puts on a mask and he goes out to fight the bad guys with isolated acts of violence. What is this? This is the Ku Klux Klan. That's what that is. That's the mentality that comes out of it. What the Israelis are doing, their violent attacks the settlers are carrying out, what ISIS is doing, what the police of the United States are doing, this is the terrorist method. Extreme acts of violence designed to terrify people. The Supreme Leader, Khamenei, when he says that they oppose the crimes of both Daesh and the police of the United States, that they're both the same, he's pointing to the fact that they are both using the terrorist method. But what's a revolutionary? A revolutionary is completely different than a terrorist. If you look at revolutionaries like Imam Khomeini, like Malcolm X, like Eugene Debs, these are people who weren't great because they committed isolated acts of violence and terrified people. They were great because they pushed people forward. They empowered people to do things they never believed that they were capable of doing. That's what the essence of revolutionaries are. The U.S. is facing a crisis, but it's also a time of great opportunity. I think the world is rapidly changing. The rule of the big bankers, the global elite that runs the United States is changing. There's an emerging axis of resistance in the world, and I think we're entering a period of great opportunity for those who seek justice, peace, and equality. Thank you.
Yeah. So, back in 2015, I was a young man in my 20s. I went to Iran to speak at an anti-imperialist conference. I gave that speech that you just watched, and I guess the FBI didn't like that very much. And they, a couple of years later, I think in 2018, they outlawed the New Horizon Conference. They declared it to be a terrorist conference, and they basically came to my house and said it's illegal to go to it. And I said, well, I'm not involved in it anymore. And I was telling the truth because I'm not. So yeah, that's what happened. In that video, you can see Marzieh Hashemi. And Marzieh Hashemi, I think, yeah, here she is, right? That's Marzieh Hashemi there, the woman at the bottom of the screen there who's like listening to another woman. Marzieh Hashemi she's an anchor on Press TV, and she was brutally detained by the American government when she went to go visit her family. Her family is in St. Louis, Missouri, I believe, and she was very brutally detained without charges and forced to go before a grand jury, held in a secret FBI facility for a few days. You can read about what was done to Marzieh Hashemi. Very horrible. She's a Press TV anchor. She went to go visit her family in the United States, and they made her miserable. And then the man that you can see, let me show you his face. They'll show a shot of him. Let me see that man who's sitting there with the glasses, with the beard, who's like leaning back. Maybe there's a better shot of him. Yeah. That, the man there that you can see, the man in the black with the combed hair and all that. That's Nader Talibzadeh. And he's a very famous Iranian filmmaker, TV host and filmmaker in Iran who went to Columbia University, and is very, very anti-imperialist and revolutionary. Just a really, really great man. It was really an honor to get to know Nader Talibzadeh. I really, really learned a lot from him. Really great anti-imperialist person, an anti-imperialist revolutionary, great person. So I guess that was Hempcar's question about why did the FBI knock on my door? That's because I went there. I went to Iran and gave that speech, and they didn't like it. Now, Chow Chow Kathy is also on Rumble, and she said, did the CIA/US play a role in starting the Korean War? Well, the reason the Korean War started, was because after World War II, the Korean Peninsula was divided. And the reason it was divided was because there was half of the Korean Peninsula that was liberated by Soviet troops. And there was the other half where after the atomic bombs, after Japan surrendered, they just, they got their independence, but they weren't liberated by Soviet troops. In the North, a government was formed called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. In the South, a government was formed called the Republic of Korea. Now, the idea was that they were going to have an election for the entire peninsula. That was the idea. Excuse me. Getting tired, but that's okay. But then in the South, Syngman Rhee became the military dictator. And there was a brutal massacre at Jeju Island of people who protested for the right to have free elections. And as a result of that, it's really not clear who fired the first shot, but it was in response to the brutal crackdown on communists and other people demanding democracy in the South. It was because of that the Korean War started. Was that the CIA? I'm sure the CIA was involved the CIA was very new in those years. But it was very much, an effort by the United States to prevent communists and others from being included in the post-World War II Korean government. I'm sure the CIA was on the ground working with Syngman Rhee and such. So, was it because of the CIA? I suppose. It was American imperialism, but the CIA was the intelligence agency formed after World War II to fight communists and stop the spread of communism around the world. So I guess you could say that was the case. So there you go. So if anyone else has any more questions, I'm happy to be on here for a little while longer. We haven't hit the 2-hour mark yet, so I'm happy to be on here for a little while longer. If folks want to keep talking, I see that, we have Gala, her very generous super chat. She'll catch it tomorrow. I see Alex Rickle says, got to head off to bed, but here's $5 for rent or diet redacted cola. Hey, thank you very much. And thank you for your hard work. We're all really excited for your upcoming audiobook of the Houthi book. That's going to be really, really great. And it's really, really great. Feel free to make an audiobook of my books, right? We need more audiobooks. Tyler made this great audiobook of Where is America Going? And I'm going to put that up. Tyler McConnell, who's a great CPI member, he's going to be at our upcoming retreat, and he's a great member of our community. He's a teacher, and he's a YouTuber in his own right. He has his own great YouTube channel. And, Tyler, he made this audiobook of Where is America Going? And here it is. And if you ever want to listen to the book, a lot of people get more out of an audiobook than a written book. So, if you want to listen to this book, here it is. You can listen to it there. That's great. But yeah, think of some more questions to ask me, folks, because we got a little while on here. I'm not in a rush to get to bed. And, I'm on here to answer your questions. But I am going to put on the video about our upcoming retreat, just because it shows CPI doing stuff and all of that. I hope more people will consider coming to our Vermont weekend retreat. It's going to be pretty awesome. So I'm going to put the video on.
Of the movement to the masses. April 26th to 29th, Vermont. Center for Political Innovation National Educational Workshop. Friends and allies, as U.S. society braces for an election year amid international turmoil and a decaying economy, many are looking, not just for answers, but for what they can do to change the course of history. How can we get involved? How can we make things better? The synthetic left offers nothing but cancel culture, pessimism, and anti-human sentiments. Often, this channels dissidents toward the right wing, which is wrapped up in the worship of markets and profits and has no real understanding of the global imperialist system and why it must be opposed, or the history of struggles for justice. With our unique message of optimistic, constructive, patriotic socialism and anti-imperialism, the Center for Political Innovation and the City Building Tendency stand alone in offering an orientation that points toward a brighter future for America's working families and the people of the world. The City Building Tendency is a fresh outlook rooted in an understanding of Marxism-Leninism and the global anti-imperialist movement, and draws from many wells, including Christianity, American history, and so much more. While the Center for Political Innovation has blossomed around a unique pro-humanity, pro-growth message, we aim to take this message further, lower and deeper to the real masses, so that the American working class may be awakened and brought to life by standing arm in arm with others in the struggle for justice. If you are a member of the Center for Political Innovation, a longtime friend or ally, or someone new who is exploring these ideas and concepts, we invite you to join us this spring. The Center for Political Innovation will host a 4-day National Educational Workshop at a beautiful facility in Vermont. The event will not only include political classes, but also group bonding activities, a talent show, music, arts and crafts, and other relaxing and stress-free activities. Attendees will get to know each other, share their experiences, and develop real bonds of comradeship. Many have been inspired by the book We Are City Builders, the Center for Political Innovation Educational Manual. This book has been utilized to lead discussion groups and has also laid the foundation for the series of classes known as the Saxton Lectures, which CPI members around the country have been trained to give as a way of teaching the basics of anti-imperialism, socialism, and the city building tendency.
We are excited to announce that at the upcoming retreat, a completely new textbook, a second volume intended to complement the educational manual, will be available and presented to all attendees when they check in. This new textbook will focus on the history of socialist and anti-imperialist organizing in America, the divisions in the ruling class, and give perspective toward building a base of support for our message among the broader population. If you attend, you will be the first to sit through and participate in the discussions during the inauguration of a second level of model classes, much like the Saxton Lectures, that members will replicate in the process of building the organization. It will be very exciting to learn and engage together with all of this completely new material.
We want to maximize attendance and not turn anyone away who is interested in the message. But from those who are able, we do request a $200 donation if possible to cover the food and other expenses for the 4 days of activities. For those who register, expect a follow-up call with CPI leadership to confirm your attendance and answer any questions you may have. You may also leave questions, additional details, or comments in the registration form. Please consider bringing a friend, family member, coworker, or classmate who may be completely new to these ideas. We envision this workshop as being part of the process of CPI becoming better aligned with our organizational vision to the masses. Subsequently, new attendees and guests of friends and members are encouraged and welcomed and will be given priority throughout the 4 days of activities and classes. We look forward to seeing you in Vermont. Best wishes, the Center for Political Innovation.
All righty. So yeah, I hope you will join us in Vermont. It's going to be a great event. We still have room for people, but it's going to be intimate. It's going to be fun. Yeah. Anything else on people's minds? Anything else they would like me to talk about? Now is the time to send me more questions because, we're approaching the 2-hour mark, but we're almost at 2 hours, but I can keep talking. Barry says he learns a lot from the live streams. Thanks. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Barry. I'm glad you were learning from these live streams. That's why I do them, to engage with people. But I really do get something out of it. I got to tell you that much. You guys really, you guys are there for me. You are a community of people that appreciate what I have to offer. And, it's really refreshing to be able to come on here, working from home, especially, can be a little bit tedious. You don't see as many people and such. So being able to get on here and connect with people and having the CPI community is very, very important. It's extremely important. So, that's going to be good. I'm trying to think what else is new. So much is going on. Peter Coffin is working on editing the video from the World Youth Festival because we have so many different videos of different things. Peter Coffin is working on that. So that's going to be an exciting video that's coming up of, we spoke to the Russian President Putin. We did so much. I was an elections monitor afterwards and stuff. So Peter Coffin is in the process of editing, the World Youth Festival video together. That's going to be very good and very important. So yeah, that's going to be good. That's something to keep your eye out for. So there's that. Well, we're dealing with some technical issues on the textbook for the upcoming retreat. It's gonna be out soon, the textbook, and you can just buy it. It'll be on Amazon, but we're giving every attendee to the upcoming retreat a copy of the new textbook. But we're editing it, moving some of the graphics around. There were some issues with the PDF, making sure everything's within the margins. Elizabeth and Marissa are working very, very hard to finish that textbook so that we can get it up online. Because it's done basically. We just have to move the graphics and the margins, and we're trying to get it's a long book. It's 532 pages total. It's a long book, and trying to get everything set up so that the book can be published. So it should be out within a few days. And then everyone who comes to the retreat will get a new copy, get their own copy of it. Along with it, we're making a really nice packet for people. I don't know, the swag. Shout out to Carl, the Trinket Man. Shout out to other people. We are putting together some swag for the upcoming CPI retreat. It's going to be great. People are going to get a nice, well, I'm not going to give it away, right? But there'll be some CPI swag, as they say. And it's going to be really nice packets we have for people who attend. And the food is going to be great. We were just going through the menu. It's going to be good. There's going to be good music there, good activities. We had a good meeting last night to plan the retreat. So we're going to do it. Yeah, it's going to be good. I do want to keep answering people's questions if people have more questions. But if people don't have more questions, I could show a video or something. Maybe I could show some kind of video, right? Why not, right? It's late at night. I'm sitting here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment. And, why not? Why not show some video? What could I show you? What could I show you? I will show you one of my favorite speeches by Jyoti Brar. This speech is very old. This speech is over 15 years old, but Jyoti Brar is now like a really good friend of the Center for Political Innovation, really good friend of ours. She's spoken at so many conferences that we've done and such. She gave a speech in 2015. Or no, I'm not sorry, not 2015. She gave this speech 15 years ago. So this would have been, she gave this speech. What's the date on this speech? 2008, she gave this speech. November of 2008. As Obama was being elected, she gave this speech. And this was back when YouTube, you couldn't have a video that was more than 10 minutes, right? Or 11 minutes. You had to have your video be less than 11 minutes. And she gave this speech. And this was how I met Jyoti Brar online, right? And I never would have guessed that years later she'd be speaking at our conferences and I would know her well, but that's how these things work, right? But years ago, I saw this speech by Comrade Jyoti Brar. I'm not going to show the whole thing. I'll just show you the beginning of it. This is a speech. This is how I became aware of Jyoti Brar. So here we go.
I'm going to talk a little bit more just from the perspective of someone of my generation. What does October mean to me and why do I think it should matter to other people like me? I'm a pretty normal-ish, middle class, mother of one, perfectly good job, got a house, got a family. Why is it living in the imperialist heartlands that I should give a monkeys about the socialist revolution and about standing here today to celebrate the 91st anniversary of the October Revolution, something that happened thousands of miles away, 90 years ago, to people very far removed from the kind of life that I'm living? Yeah, someone agrees. Why do I? Now, I grew up at a time of rampant anti-communism. I grew up in Thatcher's heartlands, one of Thatcher's children, our generation were called. We were taught to be selfish, we were taught to believe that it's the law of the jungle, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and that capitalism really is the ultimate expression of human nature. Yeah? And that by being selfish, by thinking only of ourselves, by just fighting only for you and maybe, your offspring, you're just reflecting reality. And that if society teaches you to be that way, it's because that's how people are. Bourgeois ideology was truly in the ascendant when I was growing up. And there was no one really countering this barrage of propaganda. We had English literature lessons where we read Animal Farm. We had English literature lessons where we read Animal Farm and learned to repeat that Stalin was a crazy, murdering, stupid butcher, and Trotsky was the true leader of the revolution. We had history lessons where we learned that Trotsky led the army, the Red Army to victory, and Stalin somehow hoodwinked and then later, personally bullied the Soviet people into following him. What was the aim of all of this? The aim was to teach us that revolution is pointless, that no matter what your intentions, if you try to change society, it will go wrong. And to negate the real building of socialism in the Soviet Union by slandering the leader of that building, by slandering Stalin, by telling you that Stalin was an evil murderer. You basically say that everything that was achieved in the Soviet Union wasn't achieved, it didn't happen, it wasn't true. We were taught all sorts of stupid truisms, and when you just learn to repeat them, it just becomes, these things become axioms because people say them often enough, Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. They're the kind of things people say to you, and they think they've clinched the argument. You know, they don't have a clue what they're talking about, but they've learned to say them over and over again. And whenever you talk about socialism to people, they come out with the same things to you. It's a nice idea in theory. It can never work in practice. It's never been done, has it? And people can say it's never been done, socialism's never been built, because we've been taught all these lies about the Soviet Union and about Stalin's leadership of the Soviet Union. Anti-Soviet slanders are in every field of life. I did a music degree. It's amazing how it creeps in. You know, you wouldn't think you could go and study music at university and get, you know, several times a week some kind of anti-communist slander comes in. You know, the great music of Stravinsky and Shostakovich was produced at the barrel of Stalin's gun. You know, somehow or other, they made great music. It would have been much better if Stalin hadn't been there, obviously. If they'd have managed to escape to the West, which obviously what they really wanted to do, everything would have been much better for them. You know, the fabulous childcare and maternity provision provided by the Soviet Union. The children were treated like automatons. You know, the mothers were forced to work. The professional care was impersonal, it was uncaring. All the artists, musicians, dancers, gymnasts, athletes that were produced of such amazing quality by the Soviet Union. They were coerced, they were overtrained. It's not really human, you know, to be so good at things. The victory of the Red Army over fascism. You know, the soldiers were starving. They were forced to fight. Their best commanders had all been shot by Stalin, probably personally. And to cap all of this hostility from the official sources, from the press, or from the school curriculum, from the media, we grew up with a left-wing movement that was pretty much saying the same thing. Denouncing and disowning Stalin and all the achievements of socialism, from people in the trade unions, people in the Labour Party, the Socialist Workers' Party, the Communist Party. These were the people that you came up against who told you they were socialist, that they believed in, you know, the working class. But they all agreed, when I was growing up, from whichever one of these shades of left you cared to talk to, they would all tell you Stalin was a mass murderer, probably Mao was too, Kim Il-sung the same. Socialism has never been put into practice anywhere. Marx wouldn't have approved of Lenin's revolution. Lenin wouldn't have approved of Stalin's building of socialism. So essentially, every step of the way, our generation, and probably several before and several after, have been demoralised. They've been cut off from their own heritage, cut off from the knowledge that another world is possible and that they're capable of building it, cut off from the science of revolution. They've been cut off from the science of revolution and from the ideology that offers them hope for a future free from war, poverty, unemployment, homelessness, degradation and disease. Such has been the success of this sustained propaganda campaign that even the few socialists who did defend the Soviet Union when I was young, they didn't do a very good job of it. You know, we were taught to feel so culturally alienated. It's hard to bring it to life. It's hard to believe it really was as good as you wanted to say it was. Repeated assertions that I talked about earlier, you know, they create an atmosphere, the overwhelming associations we have about what life in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe were like, you know, inhospitable, joyless. We think of gulags in Siberia. Everything's grey, everybody's a bit of an automaton. There's no choice, there's no inspiration, there's no magic to life. You know, Stalin's name is a swear word. You can't use it. It's synonymous with fear and loss of liberty, with evil KGB, with Big Brother culture. So that even those who've understood in theory that yes, socialism is a good thing and think that probably what happened in the Soviet Union might have been all right, they couldn't find the enthusiasm. They couldn't overcome this barrage of propaganda that had been instilled into them, all this prejudice, to actually stand up proudly and say, and find out for themselves, and say, you know what, this is nonsense. This is not the truth about socialism. This is not the truth about the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that is a great speech that Comrade Jyoti Brar gave years ago. Grapevine wants a video of it, and I'll link below. It's right here. You can look at it. It's been on the web for years, and it's the first time I ever saw Jyoti Brar speak, and I love the speech. I mean, it was just so on point. So Yeah, it was a very good speech. Jyoti is amazing. We're really honored that she flies to the USA so frequently to come to our events and speak at our stuff. She is one of our most beloved allies internationally, and she started the World Anti-Imperialist Platform, which is a really important regroupment of communist parties around the world. It's growing, getting communists around the world to stand with Russia and Ukraine, to stand with China and Iran. And yeah, Jyoti is a really, really important figure. Very, very, very important figure internationally. And we're really, really glad that she's friendly with the Center for Political Innovation, and she loves us, and she really goes out of her way to spend time with us. And we really do appreciate every minute that we get to spend with her. So yeah, very good. Very, very good. And that's what we're doing. I mean, we are bringing people together. I mean, Jyoti and I don't agree on everything. There are certainly things we don't agree about. But yet, we have found common ground. We're both trying to build an organization. We're both trying to teach the truth about socialism and anti-imperialism and Marxist economics. And yeah, we're really, really glad that we have allies like that. So there you go. There you go. I just wanted to show that to you all and show you Jyoti's great remarks. She's a good friend of ours. But yeah, if anyone else has any more questions, I can answer them. If not, I'll probably be wrapping this up soon. I'll probably be wrapping this up. But yeah, I really do appreciate the ability to come on here and engage with all of you. I really, really do. So I do want to thank you all for being our community. Oh, there's a Rumble rant. Okay. Oh, Patrick says, when you started to transition from hating America to wanting to save this country, plus, when did you start the transition from hating America to wanting to save this country, plus your transition from atheism to God? In Iran. I mean, yeah, the summer of 2015, May of 2015, I went to Iran and I spent, I went on a ship to Yemen trying to deliver medical aid, and I had a great spiritual experience on that ship. Then I came back to Iran and I spent a month in Iran making a film. And while I was there, I did a lot of thinking, and then I actually got to see the supreme leader of Iran, and I had a spiritual awakening. A lot was going on in my life. I had been married for about a year. I was in a political group that was going nowhere and dying as an organization. And I was frustrated because I really wanted to, I saw that change was very, very much needed. And the political movement, I mean, woke hadn't really gotten started yet. But basically, I don't know if you remember, around this time, there was a big uprising in Baltimore. There was a huge uprising in Baltimore. The police murdered a young black man, Freddie Gray, and there was rioting going on in Baltimore. And so what happened was, this was late April of 2015. I was in New York City, and the political group I was in at that point had a decent size organization in Baltimore, one of our more active branches. And so they were emailing the national list. We need support. We need people to come to Baltimore. There's huge protests growing against police brutality in Baltimore. So I had this youth group that I had built. It was called FIST, Fight Imperialism, Stand Together. And I had an email list of like 40 people in New York City that they wanted volunteers to come out and help in Baltimore. And so I called my list of 40 people, and I had a good 15, 16 people that were ready to get on a bus and go down to Baltimore because the rebellion was happening and they wanted to help the Baltimore comrades. And it was weird because they were sending out emails. We need people to mobilize people to come down to help us. And, I was calling people and trying to get people to go down to Baltimore to help the Baltimore members because they were in the middle of a riot was going on. And they needed support. And it was weird, because I kept saying, I've got people that can come help you. And I was trying to support my comrades in Baltimore. And I kept calling. I said, look, I've got people that are ready to come down. Can you tell them where to go? They'll get a bus. They'll come down. And they weren't replying. And then ultimately, I think it was on May 1st of 2015, after, so many emails were sent out about how, no one was helping them in the party, I get this phone call from the leader of the Baltimore branch, and she tells me to stay the fuck out of Baltimore. And that if I come down there, she'll kick my ass and all this stuff. It's like, very, I don't know, angry, rage filled. How dare you, And I'm thinking, and then about 2 minutes later, they send out an email saying that the youth group FIST is not doing anything to support the Baltimore comrades. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this group is dysfunctional. And so, and then that day I got the invitation to go to Iran, and I worked for Press TV. That was my job at the time. So I went to Iran. I later found out that what was going on, and you can't make this up, is that Fred Goldstein, who is now deceased, who was a leader of the Workers' World Party, was convinced that I was forming a secret faction in the party to overthrow him. Okay. And so he was constantly calling up the Baltimore people and talking to them about how I was forming a secret faction trying to overthrow Fred or something, which I would never have been able to do. I never had any aspiration to do. And at the same time, this woman in Baltimore, who was their leader, like, she didn't have enough money to pay her bills, and they were paying her, but she barely had any money. And so she was afraid that if the people that I mobilized came down to Baltimore, that Fred and the leaders of the party would think that she was siding with me in some kind of internal fight, and wouldn't pay her. And so she was really scared that I would send volunteers down to Baltimore to help her. And, it took me, I didn't find that out until a couple of years later, but it was nuts. And it's like, and she's sending out emails bashing the youth organization of the party for not doing enough to support her. And then I'm trying to send people down there to support her, and she's threatening me and all of this and screaming on the phone like a nut, Well, that was a dysfunctional organization I was in, right? I had joined them in 2007. I'd moved to New York, and I was with them during Occupy Wall Street. And at Occupy Wall Street, they couldn't manage to recruit anybody. They couldn't manage to grow. And it was really, really sad. They just couldn't manage to grow during Occupy Wall Street. And I spent a long time processing after 2011, 2012, Occupy Wall Street had down. Why did we not recruit people during Occupy Wall Street? And I later, I developed kind of a formula for how the next time there was some kind of uprising like Occupy Wall Street, we could actually recruit out of it. And I wrote documents about it. I actually wrote a document that's going to be included as an extra document in this upcoming textbook about how we could recruit out of the uprisings and stuff. And I was determined that when the next wave of protests and stuff broke out, we would actually recruit out of it. And then, it happened. The wave of protests happened. Black Lives Matter, Baltimore uprising, etc. And so I was ready to go. And then they wouldn't, they still wouldn't recruit out of it. So I'm just at a loss, because my whole life was being in this political group, and they were just not going to grow. They were just determined not to grow as an organization. And I just didn't know what to do, because I believed in the group, and the group was my family. I mean, my wife was never a member, but I met my wife through the work that they did. These people were very close to me, and their organization was dysfunctional. They just would not grow as an organization. And I was very frustrated, because I really believed in communism and I really believed in anti-imperialism, but they wouldn't grow. And I was just like, why won't they grow? Right. And I had been to Iran already, the previous fall for a conference, and I was very frustrated. But then the other thing was I was starting to realize, and this is really important, and then I'll answer your question. Right. I was starting to realize that I was different than they were. And I think this is what really led to the spiritual aspect of everything, right? That Patrick, I think it was Patrick, right? Yeah, Patrick was asking me about. So I got to know one of the leaders of the group. I'm not going to say her name, but I got to know her very well. We traveled a lot. I was kind of her personal assistant, I guess. Never officially, but I worked for her basically. And I got to know her. And I realized that we were very different. She was a boomer, and she had gone to Catholic school growing up. She didn't like it. She described the Catholic school that she went to as very abusive. And then when she was in college, there was a group of people. She went to college in New York City. There was a group of people in New York City who went around waving the flag of the Vietnamese National Liberation Front. And she thought they were very cool because that was the enemy flag. They were bad. They were just bad, and they're breaking the rules. They're waving the flag of the enemy. And so she joined them. She joined the New York City Committee to support the Viet Cong or whatever, because they were going around waving the flag of the enemy. They were bad. And then, they gradually, that group merged into the Weathermen. And I think she said that they tried to test her. They gave her a suitcase and told her to put it someplace. And, it was like it might be a bomb or something. And she got nervous and she threw it in a dumpster, and it didn't have a bomb in it, but that was her test and she failed. So they just, they kicked her out or they expelled her or whatever. And so she was kind of confused about what she should do. And so she ended up joining the group that I was in, the Workers' World Party. And I got to know this person. And I mean, this person really loved lying. She just loved lying to people. It was like a game, telling people things that are not true and seeing if she can get someone to believe something that is false. And she would giggle about it, and she just loved lying. And I realized that I was not like her, because I became a communist because I wanted to be a good person. I became a communist because I wanted a world without oppression. I wanted a world without injustice. She became a communist because she wanted to be bad. She became a communist because she didn't like the Catholic school she went to. She became a communist because she didn't like following the rules. It was almost like a child who has it's like they talk about it's a certain disorder that little kids will have, like oppositional defiance disorder. Like whatever the parent says, they must do the opposite. And it gives the kid a thrill to disobey the parent. That's basically what she was. She became a communist because these people were breaking the rules. They were waving the Viet Cong flag, badass. They were being bad. She became a communist because she likes lying to people, because you're not supposed to lie. You're supposed to tell the truth. And so she's lying, and that her whole personality, and she wasn't a bad person. I don't think. I think that she's genuinely a kind person. She never was sadistic. I don't think she enjoyed hurting people. But her whole personality was defined by, I will break the rules. I will be bad. I will do things that I am not supposed to do. That was her whole personality, right? And she's been arrested hundreds of times. Was so proud of all the times she's been arrested. I think she went to federal prison at one point never mind. Anyway, but her whole personality, as someone who came from a very, very wealthy background, a rich boomer kid, her whole personality was based on being bad. Well, that's not my personality at all, right? I mean, my whole personality, I would never have gotten interested in communism. And I realized this when I was in Iran. It hadn't been for Jesus Christ and for the Bible and for Christianity. And that my attraction to communism was that I saw it as Christ-like. Right? I saw it as sacrificing for a higher purpose, trying to build God's kingdom on earth, trying to do what's right, trying to, organize and sacrifice and struggle for what is right. And my motivation was completely different than hers. right? And I realized that when I was in Iran. Not to say that there wasn't a lot of that. I was certainly angry. I grew up in a small town, and but my motivation for becoming a communist and hers were completely different. And I think that between the dysfunction of the organization and their inability to recruit, and realizing that that was her motivation was to be bad, and also realizing that my life was in danger on that ship, and that was a very intense experience where I was faced with my own mortality, and I was like, wait, what did I just do? I expected to be arrested when I came back to the United States. There's a whole story there. And, and we even like the way I got out of Djibouti, like that's a whole nother story. Like, it's like I practically like fled I like slipped under the nose of the authorities to escape from Djibouti. It's like a wild story. So and then I spent a month in the Islamic Republic, and I saw the supreme leader, and I just, so many things were going on in my mind that I realized that the way my life was going was not going in the right direction. I realized that I couldn't make this group change. This group wasn't going to grow, right? I also realized that the world was not, it was going in an anti-imperialist direction, and the global anti-imperialist movement will win. There's no question about that. But it's not going to happen the way these people think it's going to happen. The Soviet Union's not going to return. They're not the old Soviet style communism. That's not the way the world is moving anymore. And so I just spiritually, I was not where these people were at. And, as much, it's funny because it's like, I don't even know. It's funny because I tell people I was an atheist. If you had met me before I got on that ship, right? If you'd met me before 2015, I would have told you I didn't believe in God. I would have told you I was an atheist, but I wasn't, right? And that's the weird thing, right? There's something in the Bible where it says like you can never really leave God, right? And that's true. I might have said that, but it wasn't true. And that's what I realized when I was on the ship, that my motivation for being an anti-imperialism was rooted in God. It was rooted in Christianity. And that what had given me the ability to overcome some very, very difficult circumstances in the years preceding had been my relationship with God. And so in a weird way, it's like, even when I was an atheist, I wasn't really an atheist, right? But I came out of that ship realizing that like that desire to be bad, that motivation, motivation out of the desire to, and that I had a much more important role to play, and that we have to take this seriously, right? And that if we really aspire to lead the American people, we have to take this seriously. And that I thought about Iran, and I thought about the supreme leader and what I saw, and I saw all of that, and I thought this, like, if we're going to really save the world from imperialism, if we're going to oppose American imperialism here in the heartland, we have to take this seriously. And I realized that as well, right? That you can't be fooling around, right? And that burning the American flag and the woke, it wasn't woke back then. 2015 is a long time ago now. It's like 9 years ago, but it was, what we were doing at the time was not serious. It was very juvenile and childish, and it had there was no potential for that to actually lead the United States. And that this is really serious. People's lives are on the line. People die. We have to take this seriously, right? I mean, people that are serious politicians in Brazil don't say fuck Brazil. People that are very serious politicians in Argentina don't say fuck Argentina, right? And this idea that we're going to just bring communism to the United States by telling the country to go fuck itself, that's not serious. That's childish and juvenile and immature, and it's not helpful. And I came out of that trip with Iran thinking I have the potential to really change the world and get some things done, but in order to do that, I've got to take a different approach. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Patrick. So then Luca Tani says, I can't think of anything to ask, yet always learn something when you speak about history's geopolitics, art, and some, especially like how you set the scene to a story when you're about to tell. That's interesting. Okay. I set the scene to the story when I'm about to tell. That's interesting. Oh, I don't consciously think of myself doing that, but that's very interesting. I guess Patrick liked my answer there. All right. I'm going to put on the closing music and then we'll call it a night. I'll be back tomorrow, though. I'll be back tomorrow. We just keep doing these streams. So yeah, we'll put on the closing music.
New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.